My first Mac was in 1965 with a good friend who had a new Allberg 32 Vanguard, and he wanted to go on the Mac, and so did I, but he didn't have the equipment and I didn't have a big enough boat. So we got together, and between us met the requirements for the safety gear, and we sailed our first Mac together. I was navigating. 43. The glory and the delight of hearing that cannon at the finish line. Yes, I do have a favorite, and it's the run from what used to be the can is now the number 3 bell to the bridge. It's an area that has interesting currents, interesting wind patterns, and most important of all, you can see the bridge and you know you're not far from the finish. Well, one of my crew members is from the UP and understands Indian lore. He continually tells us we should listen to the great Gitching Manitou, who is the god of the lakes, and if we don't have enough wind, to give him a small offering. Not too large. Nickels and dimes are fine, but quarters and half dollars can bring on storms. Well, I think it's the year that we and Wizzo, another Erics from 39, were racing side by side most of the way up the lake. One would get a little ahead with a spinnaker, then he'd drop, you hold one a little longer, and we were close enough that we were within a few boat lengths of each other at Skillygalee when the wind died. It was a great experience. Well, my favorite drinking establishment is the cockpit of my own boat. Meet friends, crew brings their families over, and we meet a lot of folks there who have raced with us and around us in the past. So it's my favorite spot to sit there and look at that forest of masts and think how fortunate I am to be able to do this once more. Yes, a very vivid one. In 1977, we had a heavy spinnaker up. We were offshore of Milwaukee, and Milwaukee reported 70-mile-an-hour gusts that night after dark. We couldn't see it coming, and took a couple of roundups. The second time the spinnaker filled, the top third of the mast came down. The upper spreader had failed, and we had a third of the mast dangling. And my son grabbed a spinnaker halyard, took it forward to keep the tip from swinging, and I literally took the backstay and wrapped it around the winch so that mast wouldn't swing and break and fall and poke a hole in the deck. So that was an interesting time. Yes, back in the days when we didn't have GPS, we didn't have Loran. He was all dead reckoning, and we'd spend time calibrating our speedo and log and carefully chart each tack, each jibe, each leg of the course. And we found if we did our job right, we could find ourselves within 10 miles of where we thought we were, 200 miles up the lake. And one night we found our way, after dark, between North and South Fox. We'd gone outside the Manitous and wanted to get back in. Yes, and it's usually the black flies. There's a little lore here that says that the flies in Wisconsin and Michigan have an inbred characteristic. They know that in the middle of July, they must fly to the middle of the lake and ride on a sailboat, where they're usually well fed, to Fly Heaven, which is an island in the north end of the lake that has abundance of horse manure and fudge. Well, we have a couple. One is that if it's a clear night and the weather looks good for the next few hours, we'll have a glass of wine with dinner. Otherwise, we don't drink any booze or beer during the race. We save it for after. The most awe-inspiring experience on the Mac was a night that we had a magnificent display of St. Elmo's fire. It was a dark night, overcast, relatively calm, not much wind, and we could hear a gentle hum, and then the hair on your forearms would stand up, and we began to see light glimmering around the shrouds, and then we saw a ball, both port and starboard, rise from the deck, a ball 8 or 10 inches in diameter, travel up to the lower spreaders and hang on the tips for a while. Then they moved down up to the tips of the upper spreaders. And so we had balls of fire on all 4 spreader tips, and the biggest one of all was on the Loran antenna. It was about the size of a basketball and stayed there for several minutes. Well, the electricity crackled around us. I certainly will, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Thank you very much, Alan.